Hey folks, today I wanted to share with you all how I use podcasts to learn Cantonese. Now, I bet many of you out there are already using podcasts as part of your Cantonese study routine. But are you using podcasts to their maximum potential? Well, today I just want to share with you all some tips and tricks on my methodology of how I use podcasts to actively study Cantonese. So before we get on to the walkthrough, I wanted to share with you all the podcast that I used in today's example. And the podcast is from Chatty Cantonese. I'll leave a link in the description below on where you can access their podcast. They're a really great resource because you have not only the podcast, but the transcripts and the English translations as well. So you can have all the materials there you need to level up your Cantonese. And I wanted to give a shout out to you guys, the viewers, for actually suggesting me this podcast itself. Found it super intriguing, super useful, and ever since I've incorporated it into my study routine. So thank you so much. I really do love that we as a community help each other out. I've learned so much more Cantonese from all these different comments that you guys, the viewers, have made, and I hope that these videos as well help you in your Cantonese journey. A final note, if you also want some other Cantonese podcast recommendations, let me recommend you to view this other video that I made about 3 Cantonese podcast recommendations. So check it out if you have some time after this video. Alright, so when I use podcasts to study Cantonese, I like to think of it in 3 phases: listening, speaking, and writing. Now you might wonder, where is reading? Isn't that natural in this kind of groove? I find that I get a lot of reading practice in both phases 2 and 3 when you're speaking and writing. Now in each of these phases, you're gonna be working with the podcast in different manners. And I'm gonna show you the different manners in a little bit. Now, depending on your goals, you might want to do a different set of these exercises. For example, if you're just interested in speaking, then I would say stick with phases 1 and 2. If you're interested in also reading and or writing, then I would do phases 1, 2, and 3. The first thing I usually do is to give an initial listen through the podcast from beginning to end. And if the podcast is especially long, I'll listen to around 8 to 10 minutes because any more than that is way too much for my brain to comprehend in a single study session. Later on, if there are any parts that I completely did not understand, I'll go back and give it a re-listen. And then later, if there is a transcript available, I'll definitely give a quick read through the transcript to see if I got the general gist, the general idea of what the podcast is trying to say. If there are any interesting vocabulary words or phrases or structures that I find interesting, I'll make sure to make a note or circle them. But I try to limit it to this. I don't want to circle too many because you want to make sure you have a small set of interesting vocabulary words that you can focus on. After the initial listen through of the podcast and getting a general understanding of what the podcast is trying to say, I try to hone down on a specific fragment of the podcast. Now, usually I'll look through the transcript if there is one, or if I'll try to look through my notes and pick a fragment that has a couple of interesting vocabulary words or structures that I want to practice. Now comes the fun part. What you want to do is to repeat after the podcast speaker every 5 to 10 seconds and try to mimic the sounds and intonations that they make when they're speaking. This technique is called shadowing, and it's been proven really effective to improve your pronunciation, get used to the flow and rhythm of the language, as well as learn new words and phrases. For Cantonese, especially with this Chatty Cantonese podcast, I like to have the transcript in front of me and read the characters along as I shadow. This way I build this familiarity with the Chinese characters, and I kind of build that connection so that it will help me when I read Chinese characters in the future. Alright, so for this final phase, phase 3, you're gonna get some writing practice in. What I do is the same thing as in phase 2 in the shadowing speaking part. You're going to be repeating a fragment over and over again and trying to transcribe the podcast. Limit this to 3 to 5 sentences because it is a lot for me. And I like to first write Yü Peng. Then I'll take a look at the transcript, correct my Yü Peng if I had anything wrong, and then transcribe the Cantonese characters and copy it from the transcript. This is because I'm not really interested in improving the writing necessarily, but I do want to handwrite the characters because I find that helpful for me to recognize the Cantonese characters and build that mental link with the physicality of writing ink on paper. So overall, I do it to improve my reading. All right, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did find it useful, please be sure to give it a like and leave a comment below, share with your friends. And if you do want to see more content on language learning or Cantonese, Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more videos, more to come, more great stuff. And that's about it. I'll see y'all later, next time. Bye-bye.